Hey, everybody, welcome back into this amazing, amazing room. And, I'm starting to realize more and more there's nothing really amazing about this room because before we walk into this room, my guests and I, it's just an empty room. Nobody's here. So the room itself has nothing. What happens is when people come into this room, something amazing happens. And it can be fascinating, it can be boring, it can be transformative, it can be um, a lot of things, but it very rarely is argumentative. Because my only purpose in my role in this room is to love and accept the person that comes in here, to listen to the person and let them know that I've heard them, and to acknowledge and validate them for who and what they are. Sometimes if I don't understand something, I'll ask for clarification, but it's never with the thought of trying to trip somebody up or trying to disagree. I'm not thinking about what my next question will be while they're talking. And what it really wants to do is I really want to create a little peek and window into another time and another place where it's not that hard to just take a stranger that you don't know, which is everybody that comes into this room. I didn't know that they existed 10 minutes before they walked into this room. And spend a little time just getting to know them. And when they leave, they're like my friends. And so you decide which world you want to live in. Do you want to live in a world of strangers or do you want to live in a world of friends? To live in a world of friends, all that's necessary is that we take the time to just get to know somebody and ask them how they're doing. My role in these questions is that I have no agenda. And I think it's an important part of having a conversation with somebody to remove your agenda from the place as long as you're wanting to just find out who another person is. I should mention that the show is being sponsored by the book over my left shoulder, The Mosaic. The Mosaic is a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where my parents went, where'd they go? They tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of that place called heaven. But the people he meets along the way are not the holy men or the rabbis and the ministers or the priests or the swamis or the gurus or the shamans or the medicine men or the aborigines elders or whoever. They're common ordinary people. They're the trash man and the road worker, the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I meeting these people? Of all people, what are these people going to show me about heaven? But he says, I'm here. I might as well sit with them and listen to them. And when he takes the time to sit with them and listen to them and hear their story, what he finds in every single case is that who they are is not at all who he thought they were when he first walked up to them. And in that moment of perceptual shift, he realizes maybe he doesn't see anything the way the world is. Maybe it's all, maybe the world he sees is only the world that he sees. And he wonders what the world would look like if he could get himself out of the way and see the world the way it is. And with that being said, he looks over to his right and he sees a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him to walk through to a parallel reality where he meets the wise one, who is the keeper of all the pieces of the mosaic. And he watches as the wise one moves the pieces around to give them the interactions and the situations that they need in their life. So if that story invites you or excites you or interests you, my sponsor would be very happy if you went to Amazon and bought the book. They would love that. They would feel worthwhile. They would feel happy. I would feel happy because it would give us another place where we could dialogue. Now that obligation and responsibility is done. Thank you, sponsor. Thank you for being here. We have a new thing that's happening. Into this room 10 minutes ago walked a man that I didn't have any idea what he was going to look like, who he was going to be. I didn't know if he was going to be a white man or a black man. I didn't know if he was going to be a civil rights leader or an LSU fan. What I did know is he had the courage to say, I'll show up for a conversation with a stranger and see what happens. Jessie Jackson, welcome to the conversation. How are you today?
I am wonderful, and I am so looking forward to this conversation. To pull back the curtain a little bit, we are on mutual social media platforms, and one of them is find a guest, be a guest. And there's often a lot of give and take, and yours was fascinating. I just want to do a show if you want to talk to me. I just want to get to know you. Would you be interested? I'm like, okay, I'm sold. That's a sold. So I am thrilled to be here, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation. And I'll try to hold up my end.
Me too. Now I don't. Now I have a lot of pressure on me. No. Hey, I want to thank you for that. And there was something magical about that post that I got, because I originally called the show 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. Within the first week, I had already had over 150 requests to be on the show.
That's
And,
nice.
and so I wondered, like, what is it about talking to a stranger that was so interesting? And then over time, the more that I've done the conversations, what I realized, and I think we spoke about this a little in the green room, and I'd love your thoughts on it, that in the world that we live in, it's sort of rare to be in a conversation where someone loves and accepts you, listens to you, and hears you, and acknowledges and validates you. It's not totally rare, but it's not often that someone you don't know does that. There's so much conflict going on. What were your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on all that?
So the first thing that comes to thought, Danny, is I just heard a conversation I think is relevant on another podcast, and it's the Shipping Room podcast, and it's all about TV shows and movie relationships. As on the, in social media you call it ships, right? I ship this person and this person together, and they were discussing that how do you help the post office during this time. There's a lot of social media reporting about the with this election coming up and all the things about the post office, and the host was telling they got in a very lively debate about, okay, should we buy a bunch of stamps and throw them in a drawer? That way the post office would get the revenue, but wouldn't have to work for it. And then the other group was like, no, 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 we should buy a lot of stamps and mail a lot of letters. We should, handwrite letters. We should type letters. We should increase the traffic of the post office, therefore to be more important. And there was a great debate on which was the best method. And Tamira was the lady. She goes, I want to get back to a place in our country where we have a common goal and we debate on how to reach that goal versus going, your ideas are horrible. I hate you and you're evil, versus, hey, we want to get to the same place. We just disagree how to get there, and let's figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that is when I hear you talking about it, a lot of us, whether you're right, left, conservative, liberal, old, young, you just want to be heard and you want your voice to matter.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And I really believe that what you're saying is somehow true. And I don't know if it's with the advent of social media, where there's just so much noise in the world. Like when I was growing up, there was only 3 channels on TV.
I'm right there with you.
All right. And it was hard to be heard because there weren't enough platforms to be heard.
Yes.
The amount of books that were published were far less. There was no social media. There was no internet. When you had a message, it was hard to stand up and be heard. Now it's almost the opposite of that. Now there's so much going on that it's hard to be heard because of all the noise that's in the world. And your thoughts?
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, and like many things, it's a mixed blessing. Our greatest strength is also our greatest weakness. You were going to get into this in a little bit, but I am a passionate music fan, and my podcast is all about music. And if at this in 1977, I had just graduated high school. I bought my first Beach Boy 8-track. That tells you, dates me, right? An 8-track.
8-track, wow.
Yeah, Beach Boys' Endless Summer. It was kind of a collection of greatest hits. And I
know that album, by the way.
Yes, I put that 8-track in my tape player in my car, and my world changed. Yeah. I had never heard music like that before. The harmonies, the beauty. I wanted to know everything I could about the Beach Boys. In '77, I had to go and look into the library, look
Wow.
up old magazines, find things, try to find books. Now then, if someone wants to know about the Beach Boys, you go to your browser, go to Mr. Google, go to whatever and go Beach Boys, and all of a sudden you have volumes of information
Yeah.
that you want to know. That is a blessing. But that also means that there is um, so much misinformation out there, and so much people that even with kindness in their heart can mistake, have a firm belief in something that's not true, and it gets spread. So it is a crazy time.
Yeah. And if I don't know if you've been watching these shows like the social media that's come on Netflix and things like that, that it's not only now, it seems like we've become more and more aware of people using social media, using what it is we like to fan our interest in that, and also our hatred of other things, people that don't think like us. So we're being fed now a non-ending stream of data that supports what we believe and tears down what other people believe.
Danny, I am not saying anything unique, but if if you are lean to the left, you turn to MSNBC to get your data. If you lean to the right, you go to Fox News. Um, the joke was, if you're a liberal, you watch MSNBC. If you're watching Fox, you're a conservative. If you're watching CNN, you're at an airport. Uh, so, um,
Uh,
you know, I I grew up in a time where the AM clock radio was my window to music world,
well,
right? And AM stations in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is where I'm from. I My dad was in the army. We moved around a lot, but by the time he retired, we settled in Lake Charles. And so we heard a little bit of everything.
yeah,
Now then, if I choose to, um, SiriusXM has a channel. If you just want to hear Pearl Jam, there is a Pearl Jam channel. If you want to hear Tom Petty, there is a Tom Petty channel. If you want to hear, heavy metal, there is a heavy metal channel. There are a few places where you get a wide diversity, but we are becoming very narrow-minded, and not necessarily in not wanting to hear other opinions. It's just we go to that channel.
yeah,
And now then, to quote Mr. Bruce Springsteen, right? And this is an outdated song, but he says, he wrote a song, 57 channels and nothing on. Well,
yeah,
now it's, 1,057 channels
yeah,
on and nothing on.
yeah. It's sort of amazing. I mean, our convenience has also become our silo, it seems like, right? And so, and I understand when, for instance, for me, I remember years ago when I found a group of like-minded people to myself, and I thought I died and I went to heaven because I couldn't believe anybody else was as crazy as I was and believed the way I saw the world. And I could be with those people and I didn't have to defend every belief that I had or rationalize every thought that I was having. And I loved it. I felt like I had died and went to heaven. But like it says in Ecclesiastics, everything has a season and a time for everything under heaven. But there's a time for that to end also. And it feels to me now more and more like our silos of like-mindedness have gotten bigger and stronger, and the gaps between our silos have gotten wider and deeper. And so the world wasn't created with silos. It was created with beautiful open fields. And it feels like
Absolutely.
it's time somehow to melt those silos back down and sit with people of like and unlike mind and get to hear different points of view. In business, they call that innovation.
Absolutely. I agree.
Right? So what do you think's stopping us from leaving our silos?
I think partly is the fear of not wanting to. Um, it, it is. We've reached a point where it isn't enough for me to have my belief, but I have to tear down your belief. Like, let's keep something very light.
Yeah,
Um, a new TV show comes out, and it's not enough that I love it, but if you don't love it, I have to attack you. And how dare you not love this thing that I love? Instead of going, oh, okay, wasn't your cup of tea? That's fine.
Yeah.
You also can, you find on something as silly as a new song, or, a piece of art or something, you can just go, oh, I'm glad you loved it. It's just not something that speaks to me, is read as, oh, so you say I have bad taste, versus, no, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that particular piece of music or that TV show didn't appeal to me. And so I think on a greater level, I do think there is a, a sense of fear out there that, um, if things continue the way they are, we're going to be in a really bad place as a nation. And then there's other people that are happy with the way things are going and feel that we've saved ourselves from where we were going,
Yeah.
instead of everyone just going, we're going to be okay. Like, there's going to be some, there's going to be some dips, there's going to be some challenges, but we're going to make it. But there is just this, and I do think part of it is the information overload. Part of it is that, um, if it bleeds, it leads. So I do think, and I'm a big fan of the media. I support the news, and I understand how important it is. But Danny Levin having a new podcast that's trying to build love doesn't get on the top.
Right.
But a podcast about a murder, or exploring the dark ends, may get mentioned.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast sometimes.
Yeah. What happened? Why do you think underneath, like I think everything you're saying is spot on, by the way, and I
Okay.
appreciate you being, open and saying it. What do you think happened that made us not only say, like, we've always been able to say what we like, maybe we
Yeah.
haven't. Maybe we haven't
Yeah.
ever had the courage to say what we like
Right.
even. But when did it happen that in saying what we like, we had to say, if you don't like it, you're not right?
So I certainly am not smart enough to answer that question definitively. I think, and I am borrowing answers from things other
Yeah.
people have said, but I think part of it is the anonymity
Ooh,
of the internet. That if you or I are alone in a room, or there's 3 or 4 of us, and you go, I really, um, I really like this person, or I really like this film or something. Um, we were raised to be polite, so we wouldn't say, "Oh, Danny, you're crazy for liking that." You would go, "Oh, that's interesting," because we're raised to be polite. We're raised to be respectful to each other. On the internet, there is not. I can shout and no one knows who I am. I don't have to follow the norms. I also think there is a little bit of, you you're losing control, and you may be in a job where you don't enjoy, or you may feel like your voice isn't heard, and so you log on anonymously or with your handle, and you can shout out to the, um, mountaintops. I shared a story on Twitter 3 or 4 weeks ago that, um, when Kamala Harris was named as the VP nominee, I have a very good friend who is a lifetime conservative, staunch conservative, and he said, I may not agree with her political, but she is the American dream. She is the embodiment of American dream. Daughter of 2, immigrants. She's gone to law school. She is a senator, and now then there is a possibility she could be the vice president of the United States. If that's not the American dream, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I shared that because I wanted to point the point that even, my friend who is conservative could get past the politics and acknowledge what an accomplished this is for this wonderful woman. someone on Twitter shot back, "Oh, but he won't vote for her, and he has, if he's a conservative, he's a horrible person." And I'm like, well, we've been friends a long time. Oh, you should drop that friendship because he's the kind of man. And I will admit, Danny, with a little bit of relish and a little bit of mischief in my heart, I go, no, because 3 years ago when I was in the hospital fighting colon cancer, my friend was at the hospital with me every night so that my wife could go home and rest.
Uh-huh.
And he sat there with me to make sure that I wasn't alone and I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
And they went, "Oh, well, I'm glad. I hope your cancer's okay." And I guess he is a good friend. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
why? What? And I get me wrong. I understand people are listening, going, "Jesse, you don't understand. The sake of our democracy is at stake." And I go, I get that, but I'm just saying that doesn't mean I can't be nice to someone who may lean a different way than I do politically.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
No, 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 but it's a good tangent to go on because it's a tangent we're all very, very much involved in right now. And what I'm interested in just knowing is some of my best friends have the most cockamamie beliefs you'd ever want to imagine. I would never believe what they believe.
Yeah,
But if there came a moment where they were in trouble, I would take a bullet for them because I love them, not
absolutely.
because of what they believe, but because of who they are. They're my friends.
Absolutely. And
And
that's the way it should be.
I don't understand where we suddenly said, I'm going to cancel you out because of what you believe,
Yeah,
rather than take a moment to say, let me understand, tell me what you believe. Like,
yeah,
let me just understand, talk to me and tell me, like, I really want to get, like, I don't see it that way. I don't want you to, I just want to know how you see the same world that I'm looking at because I'm interested in the way you see the world. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you, but I'm interested in it. and,
absolutely.
and we lost that innocence and that. But then I think about it because I had someone in the room who was a black man, and I said, it seems like we used to be able to. And he looked at me and he said, excuse me a minute, really, did we really ever used to be able to? And I said, well, sort of, it seems that way. And he said, not if you were a black man.
Mm,
It's really, now it's more overt and we're yelling about it and
yeah,
screaming about it, but the same thing. And then even the behaviors, like I've heard what you said about, and I hear you, and I think the internet gives us a hiding place where we can do exactly what you're saying. And yet I think of all the kids that grew up in schools that were bullied and grew up even throughout all the years that I've been alive, and that were excluded because of what they looked like or what they felt like. And
yeah,
it really isn't all that different that we can hide behind the internet. There's
yeah,
something in us, and it's sort of coming to the surface, it feels like a little bit more. But it seems like we've carried this nature with us since at least I've been alive. I mean, they're
absolutely.
just people that want to get their people that feel better about themselves by putting other people down.
Yeah.
What do you think that is that makes people do that?
There is, my sister compliments me often and says that her big brother um, always takes the high road. And she goes, she will tell people, Jesse says the high road is never crowded. And I am amazed at times the way my brother um, takes the high road. Um, I don't know. And I don't know. Maybe it's because I was the fat kid growing up and had my share of being picked on. Um, maybe, um, maybe it was just the circumstances of, you know, moving into a lot of moving a lot as a kid. So you never really had a lot of, I never had a lot of friends because I knew in a year or two we were going to be moving anyway.
Yeah,
So, maybe it's because I grew up reading a lot of comic books and, Superman always did the right thing. I don't know, but I feel like for me, I if if I have to belittle you, Danny, to make myself feel better, that is a very poor choice.
Yeah.
There has to be a way. Um, and I sometimes think that it's to my detriment. I had someone on the podcast a couple of weeks earlier, and it, and I feel like it's a little bit what I'm doing right now, so bear with me. But we were not having a discussion. He was lecturing. I
Mhm.
mean, he had been gone on 6-7 minutes, was making a point, and so I kind of interrupted him. I said, "Okay, I think you've done a good job of this." I said, "But now let me reset for my audience." And he said, "I don't need you to reset. I was on a roll."
Oh, wow.
And so I stayed quiet the rest of the podcast.
Wow.
And then I ended it as soon as I could. And afterwards I said, maybe I should have said, "Excuse me, this is a conversation, not a lecture hall. And I've asked you to join my forum, and I welcome you as a guest, but you should treat me with respect." Afterwards, I said maybe I should have done that, but once again, it was just like it wasn't. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I knew he was not coming from a place of malice. He was just going, no, 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 I'm on a roll. I'm good. You don't need to redo this. Um, so I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
Yeah.
I did. You did say hopefully you get to know me, so you are getting to feel a little bit of my soul.
Oh, tons of your soul. And when you said, I hope that's, or I think that's what I might be doing now, I want to understand that because I don't think that's what you're doing now at all.
Well, I guess you know one of the things I just and the point, this guy was talking a long time and not giving me a chance to respond, and I was worried that my answer was a little too long, and it was like, okay, get to the point, Jesse, move along.
Not at all. Like the beauty of being in this room for me
Yeah,
is that when you let people be themselves,
yeah,
everything they're not falls away.
that's nice.
And
That's
all of a
nice to
sudden,
hear.
and suddenly who they are emerges. And I feel like who you are is emerging.
Well,
And
thank you. I
I
appreciate
feel
that.
like we're getting, how can we get to know you if you have little sound bites of 3 second, snippets? I mean, that's not what we're here about.
It just, though I do feel, I say this slightly tongue in cheek. Um, I do feel like I have taken you off on a tangent because you had said, okay, so we're going to start out, we're going to find out about who you are.
Yeah.
I'll ask a few questions. And instead, we have gotten into this, I think, fascinating conversation.
Yeah. And what I do is I have a bunch of questions that I ask, but when the
Yeah,
conversation doesn't need those questions or doesn't want those questions, I would much rather stay with where the conversation is because I think it's much more interesting because this
absolutely.
is what's current and present in our mind right now. And if it's present and current in your mind, it's present and current in our mind too, because we're all connected. That's one of the things Mosaic shows.
I think it's very true. I think it is very, very true. I agree.
So, first of all, I love the person that you are, and
Oh, that's sweet of you to say.
for the listener who's listening, can you feel the person who Jesse is? Because that's the whole purpose of the show.
Yeah,
That people get to feel another person as who they are from coming from where they are. And can you feel the kindness? And it's not a made up kindness, it's a genuine kindness that actually holds the respect for people to believe what they believe and feel what they feel. And if one story didn't touch your heart, that story of the man telling him he should cancel out his friend who disbelieves, like doesn't believe like him, and Jesse telling him how he sat with him all night, every night while he had cancer. I mean, how do you cancel somebody out who believes the way differently than you when the love in their heart, you know the love in their heart and you know
yeah,
what you feel like, and you know how
exactly.
much. And so what do you do as a listener? Because I know brothers and sisters and family members. I mean, we're having an ideological civil war going on in the world right now.
We are.
And do we really want to cancel out the people that we love? In the Civil War, we did that. Brother fought
Yeah,
brother,
we did.
sister fought sister, and we're doing it again. So this can't be that new
Right.
because it's just, we've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
When is it time for that to stop? Do you want it to stop? Like as you're listener, you have a role to play in all this. So you're not just being swept along in a current. this nation is a nation of we the people. And if you're either part of we the people or not part of we the people, but if you're here, you're part of we the people. What do you think it will take for people to stand up and change the
So
momentum?
I read this years ago, and I wish I remember who wrote it because I've quoted it multiple times. Um, I think we have gotten into a habit as a society to believe in the very, to believe that our intentions are the very best, but the person I'm talking to's intentions are the very worst.
Wow.
Right? And like I know that I have a good heart and I do what I think is best for me, my family, and my country, right? And but I don't believe the same about you. I believe you are not wanting what's best for you, your family, or their country, you know? And so instead of saying, well, there has to be something why they're so passionate about this, why they're so bad. So let me find out why they believe so much, why this is so important to them. It's just very easy to say um, they and it's hard to pick a subject that's not
Mhm.
controversial, and so but
But
like
that in itself is a statement. The
yes,
fact that
is
it's
it,
hard to pick a subject that isn't controversial
yeah,
is in itself a statement of where we stand right now as a country.
exactly, right, like um, you can't, it is almost impossible to say I, you know, I grew up in a family that hunted, that which by the way I'm not. I did not grow up in a family, but let's just pretend for a moment. I grew up in a family that loved, you know, going hunting, and there were always shotguns and rifles around the house, and I was taught to be a responsible gun owner and responsible carrying and to do this. And I, you know, I when I go hunting, I take the food and I use it, and you know, we eat deer, you know, all during the winter. And so, but at the same time, I feel like we should have a debate on why is there so many shootings in this country?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? What are we doing? People are dying. We should have this debate. I grew up in a family, like I am a strong member. I have had members of my family that are police officers. But that also means, doesn't mean I can't go, why are we doing this? What are we doing? But no, it either, so that means you hate all guns. Like if you want to have a discussion about gun control or maybe banning assault weapons or what can we do, background checks, other things, no, that means you hate guns.
Yeah.
And no, it means I want I want less people being killed by violence.
Right.
How can we stop that?
Right.
I want less um not necessarily black men, but I do know right now there it is scary to be an African American man, and when the police are stopping you, it is a totally different thought. That doesn't mean I don't support the police officers, but I want to
Totally.
know, how do we stop that? How do
Totally.
we stop? I remember once someone said, and this is actually I do remember, Penn Jillette, the magician, said, okay, let's forget that all the data about global warming, let's say it's all crap. Let's say none of it's true. But if we do a better job of keeping the environment, we have cleaner air and a cleaner environment and cleaner water.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing in itself?
Yeah.
Even if you forget all the science about, you know, the climate control, just if we make the air cleaner, isn't that a good thing in itself? Isn't that a reward of itself? Um, but it even even saying I want less pollution in the air is polarizing it because, oh, that means you're anti-business.
Yeah.
Oh, you want people to be unemployed. You want people to be sitting on the street because factories will need to lay off people. No, I just want to be able to see the air.
So it seems to me as you're speaking, which I so follow everything you're saying and I so hear it. It seems like we have our politics have somehow polarized our positions.
Yes.
they've said, oh, you don't want assault rifles in the possession of people. That means you're against our Second Amendment. Well, no,
Right.
I'm not against the Second Amendment. I just don't think that you have to hunt with semi-automatic weapons. Like, you're not going to take a machine gun to kill a deer. So you don't need a machine gun to kill a deer.
Yeah.
You can have a rifle and you can have a gun to protect yourself. You don't need that level of protection.
But that statement alone, Danny, will get people incensed, you saying
Totally,
that. And
totally.
that's sad because, um, and also once it goes back, they believe the worst. Like they
Yeah,
believe that someone who's wanting gun control ultimately wants you to not have a gun.
totally.
They can't believe, like, no, no, no.
But that's because someone has told them that I believe that they
Right.
believe. That
Yes.
isn't because, like, for all of time, we've had beliefs where
Right.
a little of this is okay, a lot of it is not okay. I
Yeah.
mean, we know that the moderate way is the way. The center is where we want to be, not
Right.
on either extreme. Anything you look at, from politically to religious to morally, we
Yeah.
understand that concept. But what's happened is, if we believe anything along that line, we believe everything along that line. And
Yeah.
we're trying to make it so that you can't have anything in that line. When did that happen? Why did that happen?
I don't know if it is just because we're feeding our fears. I don't know. And I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan. I adored West Wing, Sports Night, Studio 60. You know, any you name what Aaron Sorkin has written, I adore it. And there's this great speech that Michael Douglas does at the end of The American President, where he says, "They don't believe it, but they can't sell it."
Yeah,
You know, and I do think that there is a um, a little bit of on both sides. Now,
yeah,
I'm biased. I tend to be leaning more on the liberal side, and so but I try to recognize our own faults. But I believe there is if you're telling your audience everything's good, it's okay, life expectancy is better, things are going well, you don't get as many viewers if you go, oh my goodness, President Obama wants your guns. President Obama wants to take your ring.
yeah,
Same thing now. President Trump wants to destroy civil rights. You know, he wants to do this, and so you play to your audience's fears, and then that angst gets the anxiousness up. And then when you throw in, Danny, that we have a real life pandemic. This is not, you know, despite what was said earlier, this is not something made up. 200,000 people have died. Our economy is is in horrible shape. They were talking about small businesses may never recover from this.
yeah,
Um, and you know, I we talked earlier, right? Like too many people think of themselves, you know, who are you? And you give your job. But, you know, in my case, I manage a contact center and I am very worried about my teammates. And as a manager and a leader, one of the things I do on a regular basis is how are you feeling?
yeah,
Not about the job, but
yeah,
like we have political unrest, we
yeah.
have the pandemic, we have all this social stuff, you have all the hatred and power in this presidential campaign. You know, you can't send your kids to school. You're like, are you okay?
That's
Like, do
normally the
you need to
first
talk?
question. That's normally the first question that I ask in this
Yeah,
in this show,
right.
and we got in another place. And so
Yeah,
let me turn it around on you. How are you? I mean, because the easy answer, "How are you," has become like a salutation. It's
yes.
become hi, and we say,
Yeah.
"How are you?" and we say, "Fine, good, great." And most people don't really care, and we let it sit there. But how
So,
are you really doing in this moment?
yeah, you know, I host a podcast that is it's called Set Lusting Bruce is my main podcast. I also do a Doctor Who podcast and some other things, but Set Lusting Bruce is my baby. And what I've done is I've talked to hundreds of Bruce Springsteen fans from around the world about their passion and their love for Bruce's music. And I've also had other people who are passionate about Pearl Jam and Gang of Youth and other people, and we just talk music. We talk about the joy and the love of music. And we have started, almost every podcast now spends at least 5 or 10 minutes. How are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sheltered in place. How, you know, my family is safe. I've worried everything. I'm in good, Danny. I am doing well. It I was laid off on my job on January 2nd.
Wow.
And way before anything knew this was going to happen. Ended up interviewing and made an offer for a new company on February 10th. I started a new job February 10th. And I will tell you, my wife and I have sat there and said, wow, what if? Man, talk about dodging a hurling cannonball headed your way. And I adore my new job. The company has been nothing but good to me, nothing but good to our people. We are in the RV roadside assistance business, so our actual business has increased because everyone wants to get an RV now because it's how you can travel safely.
Yeah.
So our business has actually improved during this weird time. But I'm doing well. I am doing well. We're in Texas, and so we're starting to open up. I am worried that will we ever get control in this and we ever get to normal? But I'm lucky. So far, all my family has been safe, and we're doing okay. And not to make light, but 2 weeks ago, Bruce Springsteen announced he's got a new album coming out in October. The joke I have made, and I apologize, but I think you'll be okay with it. I said, if I get a Bruce Springsteen album in October, if I can get a new president in November, maybe 2020 won't be the shittiest year ever.
Love that. Jesse, what are you most scared of?
A lot of things scare me. On a personal level, you know, I worry about, you know, my son and my wife and I being okay and being happy and staying healthy. Luckily, I am not someone, and I have seen people who have had cancer, and then every time they go back for a checkup, they are afraid that it's going to happen again. They live with that shadow. I just do not, for some reason. I think it's by nature. So funny story, Danny, right? I met my wife in 1980. We dated 4 years. We got married in 84. And she was talking to someone like in around 92, 93. And they said, Jesse seems to be an optimist. Jesse always seems to be in a good mood, and Jesse always seems to be positive. And she goes, yeah. She goes, the first 3 years we were married, I just thought he was too dumb to worry. And she goes, and then I very quickly realized that he's someone who doesn't waste a lot of mental calories worrying. It's just like, this is what it is. What's our plan? What are we going to do? And she will, if you ask her, she was said she is most afraid when I say, I don't know. Like if I don't have a plan, she's like, oh, shit, things must be bad if Jesse doesn't have a plan. So, you know, I worry about my family, everything. I worry about the short term of how, as a nation, we're going to cope with wherever we go. If we elect a new president, there are going to be a lot of people that feel like that was something was wrong, that this was a cheated, the election was rigged, and there's going to be anger. I think if we don't elect a new president, I think that a lot of people are going to be worried and furious that this administration is going to continue to do things that they don't believe in, as far as taking away civil rights and treating people who are not in that select group poorly. I fear that we're never going to find a middle ground again. I worry that we aren't going to find a way to, I want a safe border, you want a safe border, we disagree how to do it, let's find a common ground. Yeah. Common ground is a bad thing right now. Never compromise. And that's just wrong. So I think that's what scares me. And I just worry about, are we going to be okay as a country? And are we going to, I know we'll survive and I know we'll get through this, but short term, I think it's a really scary time. I worry a lot about us.
Can I share with you a personal story?
Please, I'd love it.
So I tell this story a lot because it's an important part of my life. I have the real honor of having my daughter be the person that I think I've learned the most from in my life. And my daughter just happens to be developmentally delayed.
Okay.
And so she can't have a conversation like this because people don't understand what she's saying. But she counts on me to understand what she's saying. And because we love each other and we feel so connected, most of the time I do.
Sure.
But sometimes I don't, because I just can't understand the words that she's saying. And when I don't understand what she says, she starts to yell, partly because she thinks I'm getting older and I can't hear probably, but and she's right to that degree, but it's never because of her volume that I haven't understood it. It's the clarity.
Right.
And so when she yells now, she's just yelling something I don't understand. And every once in a while in her yelling it, she says it a little bit differently and I get it. So it does work sometimes for her to yell, right? But most of the time now she's just yelling something that it's unintelligible and I can't get it. When that doesn't work, she'll start to tantrum.
Yes.
And she tantrums and that could be, I wish it happened bing, bing, bing. So she speaks, she yells, she tantrums all within, 5 minutes. But sometimes the space between her actions is different than the space that I would assume. And it would happen a few hours later. So it could happen when we're in a store or in a restaurant or at a friend's house or in the car. For seemingly no apparent reason to me over the course of time, suddenly she'll just have a tantrum. But in her mind, all the time and space things are different. Right. And so it's not bing, bing, bing. And it makes perfect sense to her. Just didn't make sense to me until I realized that.
Yeah.
And when she tantrums and I still don't get it, then she'll come at me and attack me. She'll try and rip my shirt or bite me. I sort of always thought I was a sensitive man, that I could understand things. I'd listen to people. It's a big priority for me. I couldn't figure this thing out ever. Mm-hmm. It went on for about 15 years.
Wow.
And sometimes it happened 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day.
Sure.
Thank God it didn't happen every day.
Right.
Finally, in the midst of her rage, she was running at me to attack me. And I sat and I just said, Elisa, this can't go on anymore. You know that. You know how much I love you. You know how much I want to understand you. We have to figure out another way to communicate because I can't understand your words. Can you tell me what you're trying to say without words? She stopped dead in her tracks. A smile came onto her face. And she said in perfect English, I am Daddy. And I said, hold it. What the hell are you talking about? You are Daddy. How have you been doing that? Like, why don't I know that? And I said, how are you doing that? And she took her finger and put it to the side of her head, which made me understand because she couldn't speak didn't mean she couldn't think. She was telepathically putting her words into my mind because her language was getting in her way.
Right.
I had heard that. I thought that was what was happening, but I didn't trust it because I didn't even know she was smart enough to have those thoughts. Because when people don't speak, you don't know if they think.
Right.
And this was my daughter, who I loved. You would think I would know what she's capable of thinking or not, but I didn't. So I said to her, "You little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts into my head?" And she started to laugh, but her laughter had the freedom of all the pain of trying to get through to me in so many ways. And it just fell off of her because now she knew that I understood her. And we laughed for probably 15 or 20 minutes, which felt like it was this contagious laugh. She would stop and
Oh
I would
yeah.
keep going. And it was just this laugh of freedom, of just, wow, we were able to communicate. Had it ended there, I would have been perfectly happy because now my daughter and I can communicate to each other.
Right.
I got a little greedy. I said, I wonder if my daughter's just like everybody else I know. I wonder if when people speak and they don't get heard, they don't yell. When they
Exactly.
yell and they don't get heard, they don't create a scene. And when they create a scene and they don't get heard, they attack. All that really, and I realize in every single sector of what the life that, like I help people in family life, I help people in business, I help people in government. In every single segment of my life, I saw people doing exactly the same thing my daughter was doing without even realizing it. So now an almost 31-year-old developmentally delayed kid gave me the answer to retrofit back what's going on in the world.
I think you're spot on, sir. Yeah.
My daughter's spot on, right? So
Yes.
so part of what I think is happening, and part of the reason why this show is happening, is because when people don't feel heard and don't feel listened to, they look for other ways to be heard.
Yeah.
What do you think it would take for us to really just listen to what another person's saying?
Boy, that's the question, isn't it? Um, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they are so, to put it in terms of, is your daughter's experience. I don't know if people are so tired of not being heard that they. I had a good friend who used to say, "The burnt dog dreads the fire." I don't know if they have been so. They are so used not being heard that even if you said, "I'm listening," they would not believe you.
Yeah,
They would just be their shields are up,
yeah,
because I know you may say you're listening to me, but I think what you're doing is you're waiting for your turn to talk. Right. You know, the old thing, like, listening is more than just waiting for your turn not to talk, your turn to talk. So I think that is, I don't know how we convince people except by our actions.
yeah,
Um, the it there's a right, like, you have to say, okay, well, Danny, you just made a really good point, and I've never thought of things the way you said it before, and now that you do that, you've changed my thought.
yeah,
Like, for example, um, no, I cannot think of any reason why anyone would be against the affordable health care. Why would anyone feel that everyone having health care is a bad thing? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
right,
And my buddy, who's the conservative, Sam, said, "I don't believe that the government should make you have to buy anything. I think that is a bad precedent."
yeah,
I said, "Well, but they make you buy a driver's license." "No, if you don't own a car, you don't have to buy a driver's license."
yeah,
"Well, it's the law, you have to buy car insurance." "Yes, if you own a car.
right,
But if you know," and I went, "I don't agree with that reasoning, but it is a realistic reason of why someone would be, I just think that's a bad precedent to make the government forcing us to buy anything."
yeah,
And that was a real moment. And I bring that example up often. I go, this is not everyone who disagrees with you is evil. They may have an actual valid reason why this is happening.
yeah, 100%.
So, and I to go back to it, Danny, I think we're just going to slowly but surely, we're going to have to prove to our brothers, sisters, siblings in society that when you're speaking, I really am listening.
Yeah.
I'm open. I have an open heart. I have an open mind, and I want to hear what you're saying, and I want to understand it, and not to debate you, but to understand you and accept you.
Yeah.
And I think if we could all move a little bit toward that, um, I think it wouldn't be a magic wand and everything's fixed, but it would be a nice step forward to getting to where we should be.
The Reverend Jessie Jackson, you've just summed up for me why I'm doing the show here.
That is perfect.
Because that is really what my mission is, to create a revolution of listening, to allow people the opportunity to take a moment and to listen. I want to share one more story with you if I can.
Please.
In my life, I've been very blessed. I've had the opportunity to sit with some of the richest people in the world, not in their audiences, but around their dining room tables. I've been able to meet their parents and play on the floor with their kids. I've had the opportunity to meet some of the most inspired people in the world, people that go out and change people, millions and millions of people's points of view through their inspiration that they share with people and the transformative things that happen by the teachings that they teach, and do the same thing. I've played with their kids. I've met their parents. We've had beautiful meals together. And I've had also the opportunity to sit on street corners with some of the poorest of the poor. And they've been kind enough to introduce me to their friends, to sometimes, when it happens, to meet their families. And in each case, all of them have been kind enough to give me counsel and occasionally to ask my counsel. But the person that's touched me, in addition to my daughter, more than just about anybody, was Corey, who was a homeless man in San Diego. When I first met Corey, he was very standoffish. I came walking to sit down next to him, and he said, no, don't sit here. This is my place. You can't sit here. And I said, I just wanted to sit with you and have a conversation with you. I want to listen to what's going on. He said, no, I'm not interested. This is my place. And if you sit here, I'm not going to make any money. I said, how much money will you make in the next half an hour? He said, $5. I make $5 a half an hour, and I have to make $5 a half an hour because I have to buy food and I have to support some people, and other people that are homeless don't make as much as I. So with you being here, I won't make that money. So I went into my wallet and I took out $50. I said, here, put this in your pocket. Anything you make while I'm sitting here, just you keep as well. I don't want anything from you. I want to make sure you're okay. But I just want to talk to you. He said, all right, okay. You can sit down. I guess you can sit down. It took him about 45 minutes to open up to me. And what happened is, after 45 minutes, he said to me, Danny, the life of being a homeless man is a terrible life. People have no idea, because people treat us like things. They don't treat us like human beings. People will walk by and they'll just kick me, or they'll spit on me, or I'll be sleeping and people have urinated on me. Guys come by in gangs and beat the hell out of me. They rob me of what's ever in my hat. They take it from me. I even had a person the other day come and throw a bag of human defecation at me. And I thought, I hate my life as a homeless man. I'm like so ashamed of myself and so embarrassed that I have to be here. And people just seem to hate me. So he said, that day I decided on that evening, I would go around the corner to a street that has no traffic. And when it became dark, I was going to take my life there and just kill myself. And I didn't think anybody would even notice. 2 minutes later, a man came out of nowhere and he put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, how are you doing, brother? And I said, this is not a good time, sir. This is not a good time. Please keep walking. Just don't even stop here. Just keep walking. You don't want to know. Just keep walking. And instead of keeping walking, the man sat down. And he said, I do want to know. Tell me what's going on. And he put his arm around me. And I started crying these crocodile-sized tears that I've been holding in me for so long. And I started to talk with him. And he said, Danny, you know, it only took about 10 minutes. But in that 10 minutes, what happened is I realized I couldn't take my life that night. Because someone who was important, someone who dressed nicely, someone who seemed like they had their life together, sat with me, somebody who doesn't mean anything in the world, and actually cared enough about me to ask how I was. And even though I sent him away, he stayed with me. And so I said to him, Corey, what a beautiful story. What would you say to these people that are walking by you if you had a chance? He said, Danny, I would tell them that story. Because I wish that man would come back one day, but I've never seen him again. I wish I could tell him that he saved my life that day. I wish I could tell him that that 10 minutes of him sitting with me, an insignificant amount of time to anybody in the world, that was the
Right.
most significant time that anybody's ever spent with me, saved my life that day. And I'm still here as a result of that man.
Wow.
And I know the power of what Corey wanted to say because I went back to try and see Corey again. Because I've told his story so many times in so many different ways to probably millions of people by now. And I've always said the same thing that Corey's challenge was. That you have no idea the power of what 10 minutes can do of listening to somebody.
Yeah.
You can save somebody's life. And now millions of people have heard Corey's story. And I wish I could tell them that millions of people have heard your story, not just the few people that pass you by. And I wish you
Yeah.
could know what an impact your story has made on so many people. And I wish you could know how many people are now going to spend 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes in the course of their lifetime just going up to someone they don't know and just sitting with them and saying, how are you? Because that's such an important thing that's happening. I wish you could know that your story is one of the core stories around the revolution of listening that I'm starting. Because I
That's
believe
awesome.
that's how important your life is and your story is, and how I believe that simple act of spending 10 minutes with someone we don't know and listening to them, really listening and wanting to know they've heard,
Mm.
could change the world, and how that's the core of what I'm doing in this room. But I haven't ever seen him again, and I haven't ever been able to tell him that. Your thoughts?
It's such a powerful story, and you know, we we do not know the people we touch without meaning to, and there is so much to learn from that story that you do make a difference without knowing it. Just your actual presence can be it. And you know, it's a cliche, right? But every day you choose to be a force for good or choice for bad. And it is so much easier to be a force for good, to be a little kinder, to say nice things, to honestly make an effort to be kind to one another. Is just, it's what we need. It is just so much what we need right now.
Yeah. I think you already said it, but let me just give you 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you had 2 minutes to share with a world that was listening to you, what you would like to say to it, what would you say?
So I, I'm gonna quote a Springsteen song, and then I'll wrap it up with my feelings. But um, I believe in another lifetime, Bruce Springsteen would have been a Southern preacher instead of a rock and roll icon. And he has a song called "This Is Your Sword." And then toward the end of the song, he says, "In the days of despair, you can grow hard till you close your mind and empty your heart. And if you find yourself staring into the abyss, hold tight to your loved ones and remember this. This shield will protect your sacred heart. This sword will defend what comes in the dark. Should you grow weary on the battlefield, do not despair. Our love is real. This is your sword. This is your shield. This is the power of love revealed. Carry it with you wherever you go and give all the love that you have in your soul." I believe that we are here, whether you believe in a higher calling or not. And I have had my problems with faith, and I've had my struggles with believing in a higher power. But I believe no matter what, we are here to be kind to one another and to love one another. And um, another song that Bruce writes is Better Days. And the theory is, and the song in my mind is, life is a journey. And you have to, today is the better day, not when I get a promotion, when my child gets out of diapers, when I find the love of my life. Today is the better day, because this is the only day we're guaranteed. We don't know if we're going to get it tomorrow. So I just, if I could talk to anyone, I would say, Danny, just try to be kind to the next person. You don't know what they're going through. Try to listen and understand where they are. Try to do just something nice for the world. And I think, like Corey, just listen. You never know what you do will make a difference. And I just think things will be better if we could do that. And I adore that we've had a chance to talk. This has been absolutely a lovely way to spend this morning. I am honored and just so grateful that we've had this opportunity.
Ditto. I want let if people want to get in touch with you, we're going to have everything that you do in the show notes. But what's the surefire way to pick up Jessie Jackson's wisdom?
So if you, I'm on Twitter at Jessie Jackson DFW, and if you go there on Twitter, you can send it to me. setlistingbruce@gmail.com is the email for the podcast. Either one of those methods will get to me. And I'd love to hear from people. I would love to hear their thoughts. I'm going to do a blatant plug. I am always looking for guests to join me to share why music has made a difference in their life. And so if anyone wants to join me and talk about Johnny Cash or Bruce Springsteen or Mozart, it doesn't matter to me. I would love to have them on the show.
I'm going to accept your offer. I would love to be on your show, because music for me has been huge, and it's the music of the 60s, but I still find myself listening to it and dreaming of those days. So,
well, that we will do that, Danny.
I would love
we'll
that.
make that happen. Absolutely.
I would love that. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being as open, as being as kind, as being as beautifully sensitive to the world that you're living in. And I watch it in the way you present yourself with an anonymity that just doesn't want to offend anybody, but still wants to hold your point of view, but doesn't want to have anybody take offense to it. What a beautiful human being you are. And I want to invite the listeners to really take Jessie up on his offer and contact him, and really start dialogues like this. Because one of the things that happens for me in this room is I really had no idea who Jessie Jackson was. I mean, I really didn't know if I was going to get a civil rights leader coming into the room this morning.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I had no idea who he was. And then I didn't even know if he would show up. But I, for one, am so happy that he is who he is, and he showed up the way he showed up. And this is somebody who was an absolute stranger that if I passed him on the street, I wouldn't even know if I could say hi to him. Look, he's wearing an LSU t-shirt. I'm teasing.
Yep.
Right. But just a short period of time. How long did it take for this stranger to become a friend of mine? I feel now he's my brother, right? And I feel like
absolutely,
anywhere we're together, we would do something together. We would make the time for each other, to listen to each other, to hear each other, to see what's going on. When we live in a world full of strangers, the world's a strange place. But when we live in a world full of friends, the world becomes a friendly place.
Amen.
And it doesn't take that long to make a stranger into a friend.
I agree.
All it takes is having the genuine, heartfelt love to say, tell me who you are and what's important to you. And normally I go through a whole litany of questions and things like that. But what I'm finding is more and more and more of those questions are superfluous, because that's not really what's happening. What's really happening is just when we have the ability to have somebody open up their heart and tell us who they are, we can feel that. So until the next stranger comes in, I want to invite those of you who listen. First of all, I want to thank those of you who are listening for listening. If you like this show, please tell friends that you like about it. That's what happens. When we see something we like, we tell our friends that we like it. So if you like this show, share it with your friends. Let them have the opportunity to see what you like and get a feeling of what you like. Because what you like then will spread to what other people like, and let them share with what other people like. In the meantime, until the next stranger comes into this room, practice what Jesse said, Bruce Springsteen said. Take your shield and your sword of love and just touch everybody with it. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself. Love each other. Love yourself. And what you give to the people around you, know you're also giving to yourself. So what do you want to give to people outside around you? Knowing that that's exactly what you're receiving. Do you want to give love or do you want to give hatred? Do you want to give pleasure or do you want to give pain? You get to decide. You carry either your portable paradise with you or your portable hell. You decide which place you want to live in. In this room, what we'll always try and do is hold a portable paradise for people to be free enough to be able to share with us exactly who they are, to say what they want to say, to listen to what they're saying, and to try and understand that the same thing we look at can be looked at 1,000 different ways. And by seeing it 1,000 different ways, what we see becomes so much more beautiful than what we've ever seen before. If you think of a mosaic, it's made up of all sorts of pieces, all sorts of sizes, all sorts of shapes, all sorts of colors from all different lands. Some are broken, some are whole. It doesn't matter. But they become more beautiful just by the simple act of coming together. No one's teaching anybody anything. No one's helping anybody. So when you have your conversations with these strangers that you're going to go up and meet, like Corey suggested you do, you don't need to fix them. You don't need to help them. You don't need to change them. You don't need to convert them. You don't need to make them believe like you believe. Just listen to them and have the courtesy to just listen to them and love and accept them for who they are. Until the next stranger, be friends with the world. Thank you for tuning in again. Jesse, thank you. Is there one last thing you want to say before we pull out?
In the words of my namesake, let's keep hope alive. And let's, as you said, let's be kind to one another. Well said, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for being here. Folks, thank you for listening. Until next time, God bless.